Hey everyone, the market price action over the last several days has been coiling into this wedge right into the 570 strike. We've been talking about this 570 level for a number of days now in our previous videos. The 570, the 572, and the 575 levels are our upside targets. And so we hit the 570 level, as I mentioned last week. And so the next targets, if we do break out of this wedge, would be the 572 and 575. So those are the levels we're going to be looking for any additional upside momentum into quarter end. So that's our base case scenario, is a move higher into this 575 level. Scenario number 2, however, is going to be a breakdown below this 568 level here that we've been kind of bouncing around the last few days. And the 560 level all the way down here would be our primary target if we see a breakdown below this 568 level. So this 560 level is one of the major negative gamma exposure levels. We also have quarter end rebalancing and market effects that come with trading into the quarter end. Sean, I know you pay a lot of attention to the action around this time of the quarter. Why don't you talk a little bit about what you're seeing?
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. Looking at the gamma picture for SPX, as you can see, I have highlighted here on our 3D chart, we still have this really large 5750 gamma cluster, and it sort of looks like for the time being, this may be sort of a sticking point for the next few days.
Yeah, that's a good point, Sean. And we've basically been bouncing around the positive gamma exposure territory for most of September. And if you're familiar with the way we view gamma exposure, this is basically telling us that the market is in a buy the dip, sell the rip environment. And that has certainly been the case over the last 3 or so weeks. I think those are really good odds for continuation into that 5750 level into quarter end. So thanks for bringing that up, Sean.
Anthony, one other thing I wanted to cover is the VIX, which has been declining ever since this spike in early September. But if you take a look at kind of what's happening, we've been making higher lows this entire time since mid-July. Basically, prior resistance is now support going back to about May. And so I'm going to be looking for whether we see an uptick in volatility from the mid 14 to low 15 area, or if somehow this is some new regime of the VIX, going back to 10, which I don't think is going to happen. So, I'm looking for a VIX rebound sometime pretty soon now that we've reached the support level.
That's a great point, Sean, about the support level there on the VIX. I'm kind of wondering if this increase in target rate probabilities, if you've been watching our last several videos, we've been highlighting the shift where a 50 basis point rate cut has gone from approximately 32% probability just at the end of last week to now 60.7%. It's very interesting to me that this is occurring at the same time we're hitting the support level on the VIX. There's a similar thread that runs through different markets, whether it's commodities, equities, the bond market. And so all of these things have ripple effects on one another. And so I just think it's interesting to see this confluence here with the probabilities for a 50 basis point increase increasing so drastically just over the last few days as the markets are hitting these key levels. So definitely something to watch there.
Yeah, so Anthony, looking at IWM on our GEX levels chart, you can see that we've kind of been meandering around this zero gamma level, and IWM was actually down quite a bit today. You can see we've kind of been going sideways around the zero gamma level. We have roughly $13 to the upside to reach the dealer cluster zone overhead in the 230 area, and basically about $6 or $7 to the downside to reach this 210 area, which is another dealer cluster zone. But if we go over to the chart, you can see that while the rest of the market's been kind of moving along sideways, IWM has actually dropped quite a bit from this high a few days ago. But it still looks kind of like a flag to me, and we're almost right at this middle Keltner support at 216. And so even though the gamma chart shows that we're kind of in the middle of nowhere, if you believe that the market's going to do well into the end of the quarter or hold up where it is, we may get a little bit more volatility out of IWM than we have QQQ or SPY. And that potentially implies reaching this upper dealer cluster zone near 230. So that's kind of interesting to me because that's not a small move. It's a fairly sizable move to get back there.
Yeah, great stuff on IWM, Sean. Thanks for sharing that. Next, I want to talk about GLD. GLD, we mentioned multiple times over the last couple of weeks, and you can see it's been really just trending higher. Heading towards the big 250 strike. If you go back through several of our recent videos here on YouTube, we've been mentioning this from 235 to 240. Last price today was around 245 and a half. We saw a large volume coming in here today at the 245 strike, really just kind of keeping price around that level. But I still think with a little bit more consolidation in this zone, price can hit this 250 level potentially in the next week. It's really not that far away now. And so that's one that we've been talking about, we've been trading. And I think that 250 strike is in the headlights here.
Yeah, you've been all over the GLD trade, Anthony. Great calls. Earlier this week, we also mentioned EEM, the emerging markets. We were in the 43, 44 area, and Gamma was pointing at what I thought was a very clear target at 47. And then bam, we really made a move for it just all in one day, that big gap up right up to that level, almost to 46. So that was a good move. And Apple, we actually had two different calls on Apple last week and this week. Basically, from that 216 area, we went as high as 233 before now consolidating back down. So those worked out pretty well. Now, Starbucks, I just mentioned a couple of days ago, it has not yet followed through, but it still looks like it has potential to me. Consolidating at this middle Keltner channel. Today, put in a green candle after 4 days of being down. If we go back to our Gex level chart for Starbucks, you can see we still have this big gamma cluster at 100. We have volume at these higher strikes, which is represented by this light blue. And so to me, given the chart and looking at our gamma chart as well, there's definitely the potential to come up here and reach this 100 magnet.
Next, I want to talk about Meta. Meta, we've mentioned the price action on Meta for a number of weeks now going straight up. One of the things we've been watching this week is the price action around the 600 strike. This is a large gamma exposure level, and we see volume continuing to come in. Volume today, 50,000 contracts coming in at that 600 strike. So market participants are clearly bullish on Meta, and it looks like there's more room to run. One thing I will note, though, is there is a dealer cluster zone here at this 570 to 580 range. And so this zone basically is telling us this could be an area of contention where dealers are offloading underlying shares. We've already seen a couple of rejections here in this zone a couple of days ago and then again today. These are small rejections. This is classic gamma exposure behavior. I would expect either some consolidation in this range or maybe a little bit of a larger pullback, maybe below the 560 level, somewhere in here. In either of those scenarios, though, if that takes place over the course of the next few trading sessions, I think that's a great risk reward entry point for a continuation move up into this 600 strike. And if we just take a look down here at our 3D surface model, you can see there's a large concentration of gamma expiring on September 27th here this Friday. That's at the 570 strike. But if we just zoom in here, the 600 strike is concentrated in the October 18th expiration. And so that just tells me that, market participants who are positioning in that 600 strike all the way up here, they're targeting the October 18th expiration. And so that's several weeks away. So price action, of course, like I mentioned, could either consolidate or have a pullback during that time before having that final leg higher. It's tough to know exact timing of how price will act from day to day, but bigger picture, we think that 600 strike looks interesting. By the way, if you guys are interested in accessing our gamma exposure tools or our option flow dashboard, head on over to geeksoffinance.com. You can also get access to our community Discord. I'll put a link in the description below. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.